Before we get into today's cases, we just want to take a few moments to talk about our wonderful sponsor, Babbel, the #1 language learning app in the world with more than 10 million subscriptions worldwide. I had always wanted to learn a new language. But if you've ever listened to one of my videos before, you know that I struggle with English a lot of the times, and it's my primary language. So I always thought it would be impossible for me to learn a new language. Then I started using Babbel to learn to speak Dutch. There are many different languages you can choose on Babbel, but I have Dutch relatives, so I wanted to surprise them by speaking Dutch to them. I also want to visit the Netherlands someday, and when I ask the question, is er iets special al de brownies? I want to understand the answer. It's been proven that if you use Babbel, you will be speaking a new language in just 3 weeks, and all you need is 10 to 15 minutes a day. So it's not hard to fit lessons into your busy day. For example, I do my lessons while I'm having coffee in the morning. Did you know that other language apps use machine learning algorithms and AI technology to create their lessons? Babbel lessons are built by 150 language teachers, so you learn language for everyday conversation. Trust me, if I can learn a new language on Babbel, anyone can. They just introduced Babbel Live, and this allows you to add live classes to your existing subscription for an additional fee, or just subscribe to them as a standalone product. Babbel has a great deal for criminalistic viewers. By clicking on the link in the description box, you can buy 6 months and get 6 months free. If you want to learn a new language, you won't find a better app for a better price than that. So check out Babbel today to learn a new language, and you'll be supporting Criminally Listed in the process. Number 3. Yoshitaka Makishima. In 1991, 73-year-old Yoshitaka Makishima lived in Tokyo, Japan. He had 3 grandchildren. His favorite grandchild was a 7-year-old boy nicknamed Yu-chan. The problem was that Yu-chan wouldn't listen to his parents, and he was often disobedient. He would often throw things when he didn't get his way. On September 1st, 1991, Makishima picked up 7-year-old Yu-chan. First, they went to the zoo. Then they went to a temple where their ancestors were buried. At their graves, Makishima strangled his 7-year-old grandson to death. 73-year-old Yoshitaka Makishima then turned himself in. When Makishima was asked why he killed his grandson, he simply said that Yu-chan was disobedient to his parents and he threw things. No record could be found as to what happened to Yoshitaka Makishima after he turned himself in. Number 2. Anthony Volney. In August 1997, 58-year-old Anthony Volney lived in the Kilburn section of London, England. On the afternoon of August 6, Volney had lunch with his daughter, 21-year-old Nadia, and his granddaughter, Sasha Davies. Sasha was just 12 days shy of her 4th birthday. At lunch, Volney had been drinking. It was decided that night Volney would look after Sasha. That evening, Volney, his daughter, and his granddaughter went out to a social club. At some point, Nadia left the club, leaving 3-year-old Sasha with her grandfather. Volney became even more intoxicated, and he started causing problems in the club. A Domino's team had purchased some beer, and Volney stole some. As a result, he was kicked out of the club. People who saw him leaving noticed he was wasted. As Volney staggered home, he dragged Sasha along. She was crying and begging to go home. Along the way home, he pushed Sasha and she hit a wall. People who were 40 yards away heard her collide with the wall. Volney eventually made it home to his apartment with Sasha. One of his neighbors could hear him screaming at Sasha. Every time he yelled at Sasha, she would cry louder and ask to go home. Then a neighbor saw Volney throw something off the balcony of his 7th floor apartment. They thought it was trash. Another neighbor saw Volney holding a child's jacket and he was urinating off the balcony. At some point, someone realized that was Sasha who went over the balcony. They called for help. Sasha was rushed to the hospital. The police forced their way into Volney's apartment. They found him passed out on the living room floor. When he woke up and saw the police, he said, "Oh no, what have I done to her? I should be dead." Volney was promptly arrested. He could not be interviewed that night because he was too drunk. The next day, Volney told the police that Sasha must have climbed over the balcony herself. Sasha Davies never made it to her 4th birthday. She never regained consciousness and died 3 days after the fall in the hospital. Anthony Volney went to trial a year later in June 1998. He maintained that Sasha climbed over the railing herself, but the investigators were able to prove that she wouldn't have been able to climb over the railing. Also, a witness saw him throw the child. Volney was ultimately found guilty of murder. When Volney was being sentenced, the judge said, "Yours was an act so callous as to be almost beyond belief. It is certainly beyond all understanding." Anthony Volney was then sentenced to life in prison. Number 1. Joseph Hurley. In the autumn of 1947, Donald Hurley was 11 years old and he lived with his family in Westlake, a Cleveland, Ohio suburb. Donald was an only child. On Thanksgiving that year, Donald went with his parents to his paternal grandparents' house in Cleveland. They had dinner that afternoon, and then that evening, Donald went to a movie with his grandmother, Estella. The plan was that Donald was going to spend the weekend at his grandparents' home. Donald's grandfather, 62-year-old Joseph Hurley, often gave Donald a hard time for being too skinny. It was also apparent that Joseph was jealous that Donald preferred his grandmother over him. On the morning after Thanksgiving, Estella was in the kitchen and Donald was sleeping in a bedroom upstairs. Joseph was on the main floor, but then he went up to the 2nd floor. He came back down a short time later and he seemed nervous. Then he walked out the door and Estella assumed that he had left for his job as a dairy salesman. A few minutes after Joseph left, Estella went upstairs to check on Donald. She was horrified by what she found. 11-year-old Donald was in bed with a fractured skull. Estella went to the phone to call for help, but the line was dead. It turned out that the phone line had been cut. So Estella ran to a neighbor's home and called for an ambulance and the police. Donald was rushed to the hospital, but it was too late to do anything for the 11-year-old boy. He was pronounced dead at the hospital. When the police arrived at the home to investigate, 62-year-old Joseph Hurley stepped out from the garage and said he was the man they were looking for. At the police station, Joseph explained what happened. He said he had picked up a claw-tooth hammer and went to fix a leaky faucet in the upstairs washroom. He walked into the bedroom where his grandson was sleeping and struck him 4 or 5 times in the head with the hammer. He then hid the hammer under the sofa and cut the phone line. When Joseph was asked why he killed Donald, he didn't have a reason. Joseph said that he loved his grandson and he was guilty of killing him, but only God knows why he did it. After 62-year-old Joseph Hurley confessed, he was committed to a psychiatric hospital. He was observed for several months, and it was declared that he was legally insane, so he was to remain in the hospital. It's unclear if he was ever released from the hospital or if he lived out the rest of his life there. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Please check out the latest episode of our podcast, Into the Killing. In our latest episode, we discussed two murders that took place 20 years apart, but they share a lot of eerie similarities. You can find Into the Killing on Amazon Music, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts. But that's all for today. Thanks again for watching.